The world's largest humanitarian crisis is in Yemen. The crisis has been brewing there since the start of the civil war in 2015. On the one side, you have the Iran-backed Houthi rebels, who have attracted the Shia minority in Yemen, whilst on the other side is the internationally recognised Saudi-backed government led by Sunni President Abdurrabbu Mansour Houthi. It is extremely difficult to give a definitive reason for why there is fighting between Iran and Saudi Arabia in Yemen. However, it is thought that Yemen is simply just the next chapter in the proxy war in between the two nations for control in the region. The war started when the Houthis overthrew Yemen's Sunni government headquarters for their Shia ones. Houthis' excuse to attack is that they represent the mistreated and oppressed minority population in Yemen. The idea of having Iran-backed Houthis on their borders frightened the Saudis, as they feared their ideology could seep its way into the country. In response, Saudi Arabia started a coalition between them and the United Arab Emirates, Sudan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Senegal, with the coalition receiving intelligence support from the United States of America and the United Kingdom. From January 2011 to February 2012, mass protests in Sana'a resulted in this man, the then President of Yemen, Ali Abdullah Saleh, to be replaced by this man, his Vice President, Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi. However, the transition of power to Hadi failed, and he was unable to keep firm control over the country. Hadi was actually forced out of the country into hiding in Saudi Arabia as the Houthis took control of Aden Airport in Yemen, near where he was temporarily staying. In retaliation to the Houthis' attempt to take control of Yemen, the Saudi-led coalition fired an airstrike campaign against the areas of Yemen under Houthi control. Disturbingly, however, the Yemen Data Project reported that 1 in 3 of these missiles hit non-military zones such as schools, hospitals, places of worship, or even funerals. Amidst the chaos currently taking place in the country, extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and ISIL have been able to take advantage of political instability. The map shows who is occupying parts of Yemen as of June 2020. The Houthis have a stronghold in the north, whilst the rest of the country is under Hadi rule minus small insurgencies from various extremist groups. Whilst the Houthis and extremist groups try and gain a foothold in the country, there has been a separatist South Yemen insurgency movement. The people of South Yemen believe that since the unification of Yemen in 1990, that they have been mistreated. They believe that ever since the 1994 war, where the pro-Union Northerners defeated the separatist Southerners, that the unified government, based in the north, have forgotten about them. So in May 2017, the Southern Transitional Council was formed. The council has been able to exist due to the financial and military backing of the United Arab Emirates, who have personal financial interests for having some control in the region. However, the Saudi-led coalition had an immediate issue with the UAE's role in the council's formation, as the country is also part of the Saudi-led coalition. The yellow on the map represents the parts of the country that are controlled by the Southern Transitional Council. Later that year, the Qatar diplomatic crisis took place, where the countries part of the Saudi-led coalition as well as others severed ties with Qatar due to their alleged support of terrorism as well as their relationship with Iran. As a result, Qatar was removed from the coalition. Over the course of the war, there have been multiple cases of violations of international law by all parties involved. Saudi-led coalition have bombed multiple civilian locations in the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. In 2018, Saudi airstrikes hit a school bus in Sana'a, killing 26 children and severely injuring 19 more. In 2019, warships hit starving fishermen in Al-Qaeda port, killing at least 47 of those fishermen. That same year, Saudi UAE-led airstrikes hit a detention centre in Dahma. It was the deadliest attack since the start of the war, with 200 plus casualties. In 2019, Houthi forces in Yemen attacked the Riyadh International Airport in violation of the laws of wars, with reports from Saudi stating that 26 civilians were injured. Houthi rebels also reportedly targeted Abu Dhabi International Airport. However, the UAE officials reported that it didn't happen, therefore it was unknown if there were any casualties. The latest headlines from Yemen reported that the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council had seized Socotra Island from Houthi. Before the civil war, Yemen was already a country in need. However, the war has pushed its people into famine. The World Health Organization estimates that it would be possible for half the population to have COVID-19.
Here, Yemen remains the world's worst humanitarian crisis. As the conflict continues, 24 million people, 80% of the population, need humanitarian aid and protection. And with continued fighting and the collapsing economy, an additional 2 million people fell into humanitarian crisis in the past year. 2 million girls, boys, women and men in need of life-saving aid would be a significant emergency on its own. But in Yemen, it is a small fraction of an overwhelming humanitarian calamity. Tens of thousands of people have been killed or injured since the conflict escalated, many of them civilians. And many more have died from preventable diseases exacerbated by malnutrition. 20 million people cannot reliably feed themselves or their families, and almost 10 million are just one step away from famine. Children did not start the war in Yemen, but they are paying the highest price. Some 360,000 children are suffering from severe acute malnutrition, fighting for their lives every day. And one credible report put the number of children under 5 who have died of starvation at more than 80,000. Continued conflict in towns and cities has significantly increased the number of people forced from their homes, up to 3.3 million from 2.2 last year. Over half of all health facilities are out of action, and nearly 20 million people lack access to adequate health care. In 2017, the worst cholera epidemic in history reached unprecedented levels as water supplies and sanitation and public health services collapsed. Humanitarian agencies on the ground working with public institutions have greatly reduced the spread of cholera, but the threat remains because almost 18 million Yemenis still do not have adequate access to safe drinking water or sanitation. 2 million children in Yemen are out of school, and 2,000 schools have been directly affected by the conflict, damaged, destroyed, converted to shelter for the displaced, or occupied by armed groups. And half of the teachers in Yemen have not been paid in over 2 years, even if we are now witnessing a big effort of the Yemeni government to increase payment of salaries across the country. And as in all humanitarian emergencies, women and girls are suffering a crisis within a crisis. They are at increased risk of sexual and gender-based violence and of child marriage. More than 2/3 of Yemeni girls are married before they turn 18, up from 50% before the conflict started.